Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
One of those super busy Tuesday mornings here as we continue to analyze yesterday's Iowa caucus results, the media reaction to it, and, well, the candidates' reaction to themselves. Plus, we've got you covered on your roads, your commute, the snow, and how it's impacting your life. Of course, all through the show, as well as every 10 minutes on the fives with Jamie Whitten and Eileen Whalen. Plus, Julie Gunlock is here for her bubbly effervescent commentary on all things. Let's give you a little taste of what happened. And all the way, by the way, coming up in 30 minutes, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, will give us a state of play here after Donald Trump's absolutely thunderous performance yesterday. 51% of all voters, absolutely dominated with evangelical voters, dominated across the board with every single demographic, including, we're told all the smart people, the educated Republicans will vote for Nikki Haley because mean tweets, don't you know. Trump actually won with college-educated Republicans yesterday, too. I mean, it was a clean sweep. And despite all of the hype about Nikki Haley now having this big resurgence, she came in third place, not second place, third place to Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis came in with 21% of the vote, Donald Trump around 51% of the vote. So, I mean, even though it was a strong second place, even though it was second place, it was not a strong second place. He was 30 points behind Donald Trump. And Vivek Ramaswamy was in fourth place with 7%. He conceded, suspended his campaign, threw his support to Donald Trump. And I know that Nikki Haley is polling well in New Hampshire, but I got to ask, what are we doing here at this point?
Right.
The way this race is right now.
Right. It looks like
after
Trump
all,
also...
think of the... Sorry, it occurred to me. Think of the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been spent on this nomination process that could have been spent on the general election, because we're just going to end up with the same thing. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars for DeSantis, for Haley, for Ramaswamy. And for what? For what are we doing?
Yeah. Trump, it looks from the breakdown, I mean, he won everyone 33 on, and he won women. So I agree with you. I don't really know what we're doing here, and I think he made a great speech, which of course was not covered by MSNBC and some other outlets, but where he said, "Okay, this is the time. Let's come together. Yeah. Let's beat Joe Biden." The real enemy to Americans being healthy and wealthy is Joe Biden, and so it's time to move on.
In fact,
is what I would say.
Let's listen to Cut 20 here, because not only did he say, let's come together and beat Joe Biden, which suggests a message for party unity. No, he's actually already calling on our nation to unite. Listen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank everybody. This has been some period of time, and most importantly, we want to thank the great people of Iowa. Thank you. We love you all. What a turnout, what a crowd. And I really think this is time now for everybody, our country, to come together. We want to come together, whether it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. It would be so nice if we could come together and straighten out the world and straighten out the problems and straighten out all of the death and destruction that we're witnessing. That's practically never been like this. It's just so important, and I want to make that a very big part of our message. We're going to come together. It's going to happen soon, too. It's going to happen soon.
Okay, and you're right to point out that CNN and MSNBC did not allow the American people to hear that message of unity. Mm-hmm. Listen as MSNBC pulls away from it. Cut 21.
Projected winner of the Iowa caucuses has just started giving his victory speech. We will let you know if there's any news made in that speech.
There you go.
We'll let you know.
We'll let you know. So, in other words,
why their ratings are in the toilet, and why Fox has found that a lot of Democrats listen to Fox or watch Fox and listen to our program because we don't pull away. We let the listeners decide.
Well, and even more tragically, it's why the people who do watch MSNBC,
are so clueless.
Despite their bad ratings, think that Trump is a monster. And why doesn't Trump ever call for unity? Well, he did call for unity after the Iowa caucuses. MSNBC didn't let you see it,
right,
or hear it. He also did go on the attack with Trump, with Joe Biden. This is classic Trump. Listen, cut 22.
So I don't want to be overly rough on the president, but I have to say that he is the worst president that we've had in the history of our country. He's destroying our country.
I don't want to. I'd hate to hear when he's decided he is going to be rough on President Biden. I don't want to be rough on Joe Biden. Let me just say he's the worst president in the history of our country. As I mentioned, Vivek Ramaswamy suspended his campaign and said that going forward he has his full endorsement for President Trump. Here's cut 24. Cut 24 is Donald Trump responding to that in his speech.
I also want to congratulate Vivek because he did a hell of a job. He came from 0 and he's got a big percent, probably 8%, almost 8%, and that's an amazing job. They all did. They're all very smart people, very capable people.
There you go. He
got it right, by the way, Vivek.
He did. He pronounced his name right and everything. Again, the final numbers: Trump 51%, DeSantis 21%. Haley 19. That, by my reckoning, that means that Nikki Haley came in third place, well over 30 points behind Donald Trump, and a few points behind Ron DeSantis. So, of course, here's Nikki Haley's speech where she recognizes the fact that we didn't quite live up to expectations tonight.
I can safely say tonight Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
Wait a second. Hold on.
It was so nice of her to congratulate DeSantis. I mean, that's right.
What did I miss here?
She's like a drunk dance mom. You did great.
But Mom, you didn't even watch. We came in third. It's fabulous.
That's great. You didn't get it up.
Well, she didn't sound drunk necessarily, but could we?
No, I'm kidding. No, of course not.
No, I know. No, I know. But but there is something going on here. Let's hear Nikki Haley one more time.
I can safely say tonight Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
Why does erudite, educated, former UN ambassador, former governor Nikki Haley suddenly sound like a character from Hee Haw?
She is doing a bit of the Hillary at a black church kind of adopting.
Yeah, Nikki Haley feels no ways tired.
Right. Well, by the way,
is she Minnie Pearl all of a sudden?
Okay, my parents live in Iowa. My sister lives in Iowa. I grew up in Central Illinois. We don't sound that way. We don't sound that way.
No. Well, I guess that's her South Carolina.
She slowed it down. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's a huge victory, and no, it's not a two-person race. It's not even. It's not a three-person race either, by the way. It's a one-person race. Come on.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'm no expert. I don't look at the polls, and I certainly don't get millions of dollars to go on television and predict what's going to happen when, well, it's obvious what's going to happen. But Tom Bevan, who runs Real Clear Politics, he looks at these numbers. He crunches them. I'm told that she has a chance in New Hampshire. We'll see. We'll talk to Tom Bevan coming up at 8:35.
Okay, one quick last thing. Babylon B says she orders the bombing of Iowa.
Well, hey, actually, that's a little
They
too
always
close to
nail
home.
it.
Yeah. All right.
Iowa made.
There it is. Iowa. We'll get to Tom Bevan on this coming up in a bit, and I can just say, and I'll ask Tom Bevan about this. I was in New Hampshire 8 years ago, in 2016, when I heard that Ted Cruz, after winning Iowa, had this huge momentum, and he was going to, game changer in the Granite State, and I heard that Marco Rubio was going to perform great and really threaten Trump, and Jeb exclamation point was still in the race at the time, and you remember Chris Christie at the debate. They all had a chance in New Hampshire, and it looked close. I was on the ground in New Hampshire. I participated in the ABC News debate the night before the primary. I saw it all. People were within single digits of Trump, and Trump absolutely destroyed them in New Hampshire. When people actually showed up to vote, Trump owned the state of New Hampshire. Now, what has changed? I'll ask Tom Bevan I guess, on your behalf at 8:35. Meantime, it's 8:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5s, here is Jamie Whitten at 17.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
WMAL. More than just politics, because laughter is the best medicine. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Oh, and it's actually snowing once again at Reagan National, I'm seeing. And when I'm not being cheeky when I say we'll let you know tomorrow how much snow we're going to get Thursday night. That system is still developing. We spoke earlier with Stormwatch 7, and they said maybe anywhere between 1 inch and 3. But listen, it's bad right now. But also, Julie Gunlock, as you've been wanting for 2 years now, it's beautiful. You have your beautiful look out the window and say, oh, everything's covered with a blanket of whiteness. It's lovely. And so, hold on, we're not hearing you.
The Mid-Atlantic can be, the Mid-Atlantic can be kind of ugly, right?
Yes.
At this time of year. It just is. It's like a lot of brown and bare branches and yellow grass, and then it rains, and it's depressing. But with a little blanket of snow, it all becomes pretty.
Oh, I'll tell you, I mentioned 8 years ago I was up in New Hampshire for the primary, and when we, Meredith and I landed in Boston, and we drove to Manchester, and it was you talk Courier and Ives. It was Hallmark card. It was like, okay, sure, this is a beautiful looking snow. Yeah, but then I got to leave, and that was even better.
Well, I will say I do enjoy walking, and there's not going to be a whole lot of walking the next couple of days. So,
no, why not?
No, because I don't want to fall down. I'm a bit of a klutz. As you know, I'm a bit of a klutz.
Appreciate that. That said, there are some upsides to all of the snow here. First of all, from Lorenzo Hall, Channel 9 was interviewing drivers yesterday as the snow was coming down. And this moment is my favorite of all winter. Listen to this.
We need at least 10 to 15 inches.
Oh, come on.
It will slow people down. Just think, carjackings will probably go to 0 because they can't run.
It's undeniable. It's brilliant. I mean, how you don't hear about carjackings in Anchorage, Alaska, do you?
This is true.
This woman, whoever she is, she has a more comprehensive anti-crime strategy for Washington, D.C. than anyone on the district council. And this woman for mayor.
I have one word. I have one word for you.
Yes.
Chicago. It's not working there.
Well, they're not they do shoot each other. I'll give you that, but not.
I think there's a fair number of carjackings in Chicago.
They're not carjacking Teslas. Did you see the story where all these Teslas are just like shut down right at the Tesla supercharger place? Well, I think that they drained their. This is my guess. They waited until the battery was too. I own a Tesla, by the way, just so this is not. I'm not just speculating. They waited until their battery was too low to get to the supercharger, and of course there was demand on the supercharger. So they're sitting there waiting with the heat on, and guess what? The heat drains your battery, and they didn't plan ahead. I will say this about a Tesla: if you're not good at planning ahead, not your car. Don't get it.
Not my car. Oh, I could never do it. I would be one of those people with a dead Tesla.
Somebody referred to them as a bunch of dead robots.
Yes, there's a lot of dead robots laying around here.
So that is, I guess, I said that there's some upside to the winter weather. That's not one of the upsides if you own a Tesla. But coming up, we'll tell you about something that could be absolutely joyful and cathartic on the mall that is scheduled. They're back. Those folks who do the spontaneous snowball fights, they've already announced their plans for the mall. We'll give you since you don't have to work and the kids aren't at school, we'll give you all the details about today's epic snowball fight on the mall coming up in just a moment. But first, so it's official, there will be a epic snowball fight. It's planned for this morning, actually. When is this supposed to go down?
8:30.
8:30. Oh my gosh, it's already begun. Why did they pick so early? I guess they want to make sure they get it before the snow. This is the group Washington, D.C. Snowball Fight Association. They've been on a 2-year hiatus for obvious reasons. Their last snowball fight was January of 21 at Smithsonian Castle. I remember they did an epic one at DuPont Circle. And by the way, it's just a free-for-all. Everybody just hits each other with snowballs, and it's fabulous, and it goes for 2 hours. And today's snowball fight is already underway on the National Mall between the National Gallery of Art and the Air and Space Museum, so right there in the middle of it all. So there you go. Get down there and start chucking snowballs at each other.
That sounds like fun. That sounds like a lot of fun.
And we love the people at Washington, D.C. Snowball Fight Association, which is
so this is a bit of
unincorporated and unofficial. Yeah.
Well, you said this was a bit of good news about the snow. And the other good news is many kids have another day off.
Yeah.
So maybe join the snowball fight.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Wonderful. Go enjoy it and pray that it melts soon so we can get back to normal life. But enjoy. And by the way, this they always have a name for the snowball fight. This one is called the Battle of Snopenheimer.
Really?
Like that. Yes.
Maybe too.
It's 8 next.
WMAL-FM Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:36, and in 30 minutes we'll hand it off to Chris Plant for the Chris Plant Show. You're listening to O'Connor and Company, as you do every morning on a super busy one, because we got you covered on your road conditions, your traffic, your accidents, your weather conditions. It's snowing, for crying out loud, here in the nation's capital, first time in 2 years, and we'll give you everything you need to know throughout the day. In fact, it's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
It's a 2-person race, Nikki Haley says, which is a weird thing for the third-place finisher to say. I don't think she's talking about Governor DeSantis and President Trump. But I think last night was clarifying in many respects. Yes, Trump won, but the big question was, well, who will come in second and how close will it be? Well, it wasn't close.
At all.
Not even close, and Donald Trump got 51% against it. In other words, if everybody coalesced against Donald Trump and voted for their candidate,
right,
Trump still would have won. So Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, you look at these numbers, you look at these polls going forward. I mean, that's quite a statement coming out of the Hawkeye State, isn't it?
It is. It's in many ways a best case scenario for Trump, right? He managed to stay over 50%, which was sort of the mark that everybody was looking at. He and for both of his main competitors, to basically be tied 30 points behind, it doesn't give the media, it doesn't give either one of them this narrative that somehow Trump is vulnerable and they're surging and off we go to New Hampshire. It doesn't really leave them with a lot of options moving forward. Obviously, Nikki Haley, as you mentioned, tried to portray this as a 2-person race. But, we'll see. I think it's definitely going to blunt her momentum heading into New Hampshire. And so I think Trump's in a very, very strong position, and he had a great night.
Also, can you clear one thing up for me? Because, again, you're on top of all these polls. I'm looking at the Real Clear Politics average of polls right now in terms of the general election, Trump versus Biden versus Haley versus Biden. I'm told by people that Nikki Haley has the best shot against Joe Biden, and certainly she'll do better in New Hampshire because that's a good state for her. But right now, the Real Clear average shows Trump beating Biden in November by 1.1% and Haley by 0.4%. Where is this myth coming from that Haley has a better shot against Joe Biden?
Well, Haley had 3 basically really good polls in November, general election polls. There's a Fox News poll that showed her beating Biden by 11. There was a Harris X Messenger poll showed her beating Biden by 10. And then there was this Wall Street Journal poll at the end of November, beginning of December, that had her beating Biden by 17 points in a general election. However, in the 6 polls that are in our Real Clear Politics average now, which start sort of mid-December, Biden's beating her in 4 of those 6. And so on average, she's still ahead. But that lead, which at one point was over 4 points, is now down to less than half a percentage point. So I think she had a good run there with polls for a bit, and she was able to parlay that into the argument that she's the better general election candidate. And she was at the time, but that's no longer the case.
Gotcha.
These Iowa results are pretty remarkable, and it's even more remarkable when you consider the indictments against him, the media blackouts, the fact that the mainstream media doesn't just really cover him at all, including last night when MSNBC refused to play his speech in Iowa. Is that part of what is propelling him? Is the more the media refuses to cover him, the more indictments come out. Is this part of the magic of Trump? I'm trying to understand how he continues to do so well when they've made it very difficult for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump is a very unique political figure, obviously. He's broken all the rules. He survived things that other candidates have not, including in Iowa. I mean, he didn't spend a lot of time campaigning here. He drops in, he does these rallies, he leaves. I mean, that is not how no other candidate could get away with that, okay? And the other thing, too, is, with Trump in the race, there's this question for people who supported Trump. And we were at a caucus last night. We listened to the speeches from other candidates, and a lot of them got up and said, listen, I voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, but this year you need to vote for my candidate or this candidate because of X, Y, or Z. And that's just not, for a lot of folks, it's not convincing enough. They are riding with Trump. They've been riding with Trump. They're going to stick with him. And I do think that if you look in the broad scope of this race so far, those indictments did galvanize a lot of people who were perhaps open to voting for someone else because, and that's, we've seen this pattern play out over and over and over again, which is the media and the Democrats sort of overplay their hand. Trump is able to play the victim and say, this is a terrible thing that's happening to me and to our country. It could happen to you. We need to stop it. And it generates, more support for him. And that's something that these other candidates were never able to get around. I do want to just real quickly, while it's on my brain here, give a shout out to the pollsters who polled the caucuses. Polling these caucuses is not an easy job. There was the weather at play, and you look at our average. We had Trump at 52.5, Haley at basically 18, and DeSantis at 15.5, Ramaswamy at 6.8. That's pretty much where everybody came in, right about where they were, with the exception of DeSantis, who, again, and we've seen this with, we saw it with Santorum, we saw it with Cruz, we've seen it with Huckabee. The evangelical support, the machine here, particularly in Northwest Iowa, gives you about, helps you overperform your polls. And DeSantis did that by about almost 5.5 points. So he was the big winner in that sense. But by and large, I think the pollsters did a pretty good job. I think 5 out of the 6 of them that we had in our average showed Trump holding over 50%, which is where he finished.
Christie's out, but we haven't seen any polls out of New Hampshire that reflect him leaving the race. I'm looking forward to seeing those hopefully this week. Ramaswamy's out. He endorsed Trump. Do you expect any other shifts, anything else happening now between now and New Hampshire?
Probably not. I mean, it's hard to say how these candidates are going to react, moving forward. I mean, DeSantis is the one where, he did well in Iowa, better than expected, and so in that sense he beat expectations. But where does that leave him? I mean, you look at where in New Hampshire he's at only like 6.5%. That's not great. He said he's going to go straight to South Carolina. Does he really think that he's going to beat Donald Trump in South Carolina or Nikki Haley? It seems unlikely. So he's the one who has sort of the roughest path. And then the decision, well, how long does he want to play this out? Does he have enough money? Does he have enough support? Especially if your campaign is going to sort of lose support, figuring when to get out. And that's what I think Ramaswamy did was a smart move for him to get out last night. He has maximum leverage right now.
Yeah.
He's not a candidate that needs money. He could hang around as long as he wants. He makes these viral videos, but his support is only going to dwindle. And at that point, what's getting out 3 months from now when you're at 2% right now? And as you mentioned, going into New Hampshire, where Trump, the margin there is smaller, and you do have Chris Christie getting out, so theoretically most of, if not all, that support will go to Haley. Ramaswamy just helped Trump a great deal because he's at 5% in New Hampshire. All of his voters are going to go to Trump. Yeah. That'll help him sort of stave off any sort of surge that might come from Nikki Haley in New Hampshire. So I think Ramaswamy actually very smartly for him chose a point of maximum leverage and helped Trump as much as he could moving forward. And, we'll see what that ends up getting him, if it's a spot in the administration or ambassadorship or whatever. But it's a harder decision for DeSantis because obviously he's not at 5%. He's at, He finished at 20% in Iowa. That's not nothing.
What's interesting about DeSantis is, anyone who is supporting Christie does not like Trump. You're right. And they're going to go to Haley. Some might go to DeSantis. But what's interesting about DeSantis' voters is they are, I think, at their heart, probably also Trump supporters. And Trump supporters like DeSantis, too. He's got leverage right now, and he's got a hell of a lot more in his back pocket to offer Trump than even Vivek does. The question is, can he swallow his pride and just, use that leverage for something? And or is there too much sort of bad blood right now between those two candidates? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And then the question is, but where does it end for? I mean, if you look long term, where does that end for DeSantis? It's going to end worse for him 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now,
right?
Than it would be to say,
right now.
I took my best shot. I
That's
got
right.
second place in Iowa. That's not nothing, but
But this is not my time. The voters, and the best thing for him right now is that it positions him for 4 years from now. That's what this has got to be about for DeSantis now, I think. Before it's too late. Tom Bevan, we can talk about this all day, but sadly we can't talk about this all day. But we always love hearing from you, and we expect to hear from you a lot this election year. Thank you, sir.
You got it. Thanks, Larry.
It's Real Clear Politics. If you care about these things, and I know you do, I'm pretty sure you already know about them, and you're there every day. Real Clear Politics. It's 8:46. Let's get to Jamie Whitten now on the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Track.
I got my driver's license in Chicago in December when I was 16. So, I can drive in this stuff all day long.
Joy Reid has much to say about yesterday's Iowa caucus. I suspect Chris Plant may react.
Joy Reid, I love her. She's a racist and a bigot, and that's why NBC loves her.